Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Tower of God episode 4. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. We are continuing the crown game right where we left off. Like I said, Shibisu is like, no, I'm the weakest person on the team. You should let me take the crown. But Hatsu's like, nah, like with my swordsmanship and your killing fist or whatever style. And he's like, wait, you believe me? He's like, yes. Why wouldn't I? You're supposed to trust a teammate. He's like, Hats, I love you. You're amazing. So now it turns into a game of like, all right, who's going to go out next? Because with a knock on the throne, like nobody really wants to take that chance, especially seeing what she's capable of, seeing especially with what we later on now know the name of Green April in her hands. It's like, right, we probably want to avoid that. So that's why Kun is like, second and third round's kind of the best time to go, but that all changed a little bit when the knock's on the throne, so that kind of changes things a little bit because she's a beast. So there's another team that goes out, and the other team is God, I'm blanking on her name. It's Shibitsu's rival. They say her name because Ho is the dude with the horn. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but I think it's Lauro. He's the sleeping dude, and I believe, what was it, like, it's like Serena or something like that. I don't think it was, maybe it was Serena, but it might be like Serena. Either way, they came out, the other team came out, and I love Hatsu. Once again, like, Hatsu has such a unique fighting style, because you can't help but think a little, there was even a character that kind of looked like Zoro from One Piece. He had like a, dirtyish kind of like beige shirt and kind of like a green waistband, and we like very much kind of had the Zoro design to it. But Hatsu with his double swords, especially because like he flings one around, and like it's been like he did it when he was fighting a knock in the previous in test 2. But I love the whole thing of like him holding his own against those others, despite them like having the advantages and everything. And your boy Shibisu gets to it. He's like, yeah, I am weak, but the fact of the matter is I'm determined. I'm persistent. That should count for something. So he shows off his moves a little bit. He hits like Serena in the face, and she's like, you're not supposed to hit a woman. He's like, you were going to stab me. She's like, I was going to stab you like a little bit. So he's handling his own, but he's like, right, I don't have to worry about them as much because neither one of them, Ho or her, are like strong, so they should be good. But she still goes after him regardless. But the other team ended up getting obliterated by Hatsu. So when Shibitsu was in trouble, Hot steps in and he's like, why are you closing your eyes during the fight? I was like, oh, you saved me, thank you, I love you so much. He's just like, get off me. I'm like, yes, why they're such a good squad. I even love that him and her and Shibisu had the whole thing of like, right, he's like, weren't we on the same squad? She's like, I never agreed to the whole team up thing, so it was like, it's kind of every team for themselves, so we're not on the same side anymore. We were celebrating as like, they're kind of frenemies, great rivals and everything like that. But then it turns out this is all like Lauro's plan, and we get to see what he's capable of. And obviously this is our first time hearing the term wave controller, that being like the members of the team who control Shinsu. That's like their main thing. I don't remember the other positions. They'll come back to me, but it's like, yeah, all wave controllers act like that. They are the Shinsu controllers of their squads. And he like bursts off a giant wave. And it's also a Nox fault for being like, because she said it last episode, like, no matter who she's weak or strong, I always go all out. But she didn't take none of it serious because she thought like, oh, I'm hot shit. No one here can mess with me. And she kind of got caught off guard by that. And like, it was not like the crown was necessarily threatened being taken, but Lauro doing his thing kind of turned the tides at least a little bit because it caught them all off guard. But sadly, Anak got annoyed. He's like, I get it. It's infuriating being woken up. It's like, shut up. But in that moment, she ignites it. It's like, right, it's an ignition weapon. Like a lot of these terms I've forgotten, like the Month series and ignition weapons, I'd forgotten all about that. So she ends up using Green April and kind of warps it. It like starts sending out basically like tendrils everywhere. Luckily they're avoiding, but once again, is it Serena or Serena, like ends up grabbing them and bouncing, and Laura was like, what? No. She's like, I would rather run 1,000 or like 100,000 times if it means we didn't die. So, you know, the rules of it, if you run back to your station, you disqualify. And he's so upset about it, he just like covers himself in a blanket. She's like, you brat. So they get disqualified. So it's like, yay, we get to keep our position. But the problem is, while Green April was running rampant, Blue March reacted to it. And because of that, it caught Anok's attention. And so she goes and tries to take Black March. Is like, right, you have no right to claim that weapon. Because even Lero was calling her, well, you know, watching the match was kind of being like, yeah, she let her temper get the best of her. So it's like, she has all this judgment towards Bomb for being unworthy, but the thing is, like, she has to kind of get her own shit together. But it's like, because she's a little cocky, but her circumstances is kind of like, right, she's a princess, but also because I think the princess is getting imbued with, I think some of that power they have isn't just from them. I think it comes from their dad, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he imbues them with some of his power. So the princesses are like freakishly strong. We never got to see Yuri in battle, but like, she's like, all the princesses are like top tier like that. But I think Jihad, like, when you become a princess, one of his daughters, he bestows upon like some of his power to you. If I remember correctly, I could be mistaken on that front. But she ultimately ends up getting disqualified because, you know, it's like, for one, she stepped off the throne and she ended up stepping into someone else's section. But Bomb won't hand the sword over to her because, like, right, I borrowed this from Yuri. I have to give it back to her. I can't just hand it over to you. And then she's like, fine, if that's the case, I'll just take it myself. But then Lero's like, you've done enough to break the rules, so stop. And it's like, right, don't get mad at a ranker. Don't get mad at Lero. Just calm down. You know, she gets so caught up in everything. She's kind of a little like Kun in that regard, where it's like she thinks she doesn't need the rest of her team. Like, she's like, oh, they're lower than me. Like, I can handle this on my own. Like, what team? It's just me. I'm literally carrying you guys. Like, not even acknowledging Hot's skills and stuff like that. That if it wasn't for Hot's, and even you know, they blocked it so you didn't have to do anything. But also, like, Shibisu's the reason why you passed this, the third test, you know, so. But, because, right, because this isn't technically the fourth test, it's a bonus. But, Anak makes a deal, right? If I win, you give me Black March. If you win, you get Green April. But because it's like, right, I'm making this deal with you because when the game is over, I'm going to find you, kill you, and take it anyway. So, but, you know, Bomb knows, like, if he keeps the weapon and doesn't take the deal, it's going to cause more trouble for Rock and Kun. But Rock doesn't back down. He's like, right, don't let this, like, turtle talk down to you. Because Bomb had stood up to her being like, no. And it's like, good, you know, Black Turtle. Like, don't let this lizard tell you what to do. She won't, you know, and Kun's proud of him too, because it's like, yeah, you are weak, but the fact is you were willing to keep your promise. It's like, yeah, Rachel told me, like, breaking your promise is kind of a bad thing, especially to a girl. It's like making an enemy of the world. So he's like, I just was, you know, doing what Rachel told me, but he's like, but at the same time, I made my choice. And that moment, it just makes Kun think more about Maria, of like, right, willing to do whatever for this person, because he said, like, he thinks it's Rachel over there, but he's like, no, it can't be, because if it was Rachel, she would have acknowledged me, right? But the fact that she didn't, for him, is like, no, I must be mistaken. I just must want to see her so much that it can't be Rachel. So they're kind of participating this time, now that this is the best time to jump in, now that Anok's not on the throne. But because of that, everyone decides to come out the woodwork. And I love your boy Kun gets immediately started on it, bag full of tricks, released like a whirlwind to kind of spread everyone out, takes the crown, throws it in his bag, and then proceeds to throw it out. And he's like, yeah, fine, fight amongst yourselves. And while they're so busy fighting amongst themselves, he pulls out the real crown and he places it on Bond. Well, no, he hasn't placed it on Bond. Oops, sorry, spoilers, but he puts it on Bond. Bond's the one that has to sit on the throne. Sorry for throwing that out there if you didn't know already. So Rock's just more like, man, don't, like, hog all the fun. Like, I want to do something. I'm bored just sitting here waiting. So obviously, when Anak was going back to her, like, waiting area, the other person mocks her by calling, like, mouthing the words imposter. It's like, oh, what's wrong with calling an imposter an imposter? I forgot her and Rachel were on the same team. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, once again, now we've gotten a view at 3 princesses, technically 4. The other one hasn't revealed herself yet, but, it's like, right, we can kill everyone else out there, right? And then Rachel's like, of course, even though she's looking at Bomb and doesn't say anything. And I think that in itself speaks volume. It's like, right, that she's willing to let Bomb die. It's like, oh, that's kind of, It could just be like she's going along with things, but, but that's where things kind of end on that front. Obviously, next episode, we are continuing the Crown Game. The Crown Game, this should be, the next episode it probably won't even be the full episode. Probably like half the episode will be the finishing up the Crown Game, I believe. I could be mistaken, but yeah, we are entering the aftermath of it, So, Team Rock, Bomb, and Kun are the ones with the crown. So, we'll see. The game doesn't go, like, just because you might think, like, the game might go a certain way, it doesn't go the way you think it will, from my recollection. And, it just made me think about something I brought up in a previous episode. I was like, I must be wrong about that. I completely forgot about that whole thing. I was like, it's just something I brought up in the episode previously. What's that? Now that also answered my question, because I brought up, like, that's another thing I got wrong. I was like, I was thinking there's 7 weapons. So maybe the 7 I'm thinking of was the 7 princesses, that there currently are 7, and then maybe that's where I got the number 7 from, but it's actually 13 weapons. Each named after a different month. It seems, obviously, with March and April. The game doesn't end the way you think it would, to a certain extent. But I'm very interested to see it from my recollection of how it ends, and see if my recollection is close to what I'm thinking it is. But it doesn't end the way you think it would. It's going to be interesting, because next episode is going to have some interesting reveals amongst our cast of characters, and seeing how that ultimately all plays out. I'm interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.